boxes or anything like that. And then while we're here, we might as well create our primary field for invoices, because we'll need it later. And it follows the same naming convention. Now, when creating the serial number field.
Hi, everyone. It's Rich Sheffrin, and I'm here for another Q&A call, a late-night one. So if you have a question, go ahead and press *1, and you will be put into the queue of questions. And we will take questions from the forum as well as from callers. And we will start with questions from the forum, I guess, and then we will roll into questions from the call. So once again, if you have a question, you press *1, and you will be put into the queue for questions. All right, so the first question is, one of the projects I'm planning is an online cooking video site with some pretty famous guest chefs. I think I should structure it as a membership site, although I haven't gotten that far. What I worry about is the retirement portion. When I look at StomperNet and all they do with the members and their expectations, it doesn't seem like they can retire anytime soon. Similarly, if I have a membership site, aren't I creating a job for myself? One that needs constant updating and refreshing rather than creating a business I can retire from within a few years? Thanks in advance for your attention. All right, well, the difference is that where Stomper is in an area where there's constant change. Constant change being that the tactics that might have worked a year ago might not work any longer today. And that's a big problem for a membership site that you're trying to create something on autopilot. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't have other people creating the content for you, which is what Stomper primarily does. They seek subject matter experts and have them consistently create new content for their system. The alternative is to have something like what you're doing here, where either you roll out the content slowly. So in other words, if you're doing 4 interviews a month, you only put 2 in, or you do some kind of process where you get way ahead of the game. And by getting way ahead of the game, what that allows you to do ultimately is be able to step aside and yet still have an automated process kind of go on behind the scenes where you are consistently contributing new content. But the idea is that if someone's going to be a member, it's a lot easier for retention reasons to keep someone as a member if you have new content consistently coming out. You could also do it, though, in a way where, like the way we do it, where you're rolling out module-specific information based on the length of time that they're in the program. So there's lots of ways to set it up. And really, the only limiter is really your creativity. So think about how Stomper does it. Think about the second option I gave you, which is basically roll it out over like pre-scheduled periods of time and getting ahead. Or think about the way that we do it, which is basically that it is a length of time, and the length of time could be infinite, but that you're slowly releasing more and more to the member as they kind of progress through the continuity. And so that would be my 3 ways that I would recommend thinking about. But if you use those 3 as a lifting point or launching point to kind of come up with a bunch of other ideas, I'm sure that you could. And so that's why I'm saying that the only limiter will really be your creativity at the end of the day. And so that's how I would kind of look at a membership site, as to trying to figure out what it is that you want to offer. Now, you could also, I'll add one more concept, you could have the videos be a piece of it, and you could be pulling in feeds from other good blogs that you put into the membership site where, you know, maybe there's some quality check to make sure that they're good. There are ways that you could do that with other blogs, with other news stories, etc. And so you could always have this continually new content that isn't just based on the videos that you are creating. So those are some things to think about. And if you have a follow-up question, you can just go ahead and post it back in the forum, and I will see it, and I can answer it on the next Q&A call. So that answers that question. If you have a question, once again, just press *1, and you will go into the queue for this call, and I will do my best to answer it appropriately. All right, next question here from the forum is from Kate. Okay, I would like to say I'm loving what I'm reading and seeing so far. I'm in Module 1, so I'm real new. The question I have is, I'm a computer geek by trade, and I'm hoping to open up a membership site where I can have tutorials, both video and ebooks, but I wonder if I can make a business, i.e. staff and subordinates, and make real money. I'm naturally technical and not a quitter. Been in internet marketing for over 3 years, and you seem to have hit the nail on the head as far as I was doing everything myself with little return in the process. I'm in the process of mapping out my vision and trying to put the pieces together, and I believe in my vision as well, so thank you for your time. All right, well, it's hard for me to answer this question, Kate, primarily because I don't know in what space you are wanting to create this membership site. There are certainly tremendous amounts of membership sites that are, quote-unquote, to use your words, a real business. Everything from Consumer Reports, which is the largest membership site, I think with 3 million subscribers, all the way down to, a very niche-specific type. And it's not really the format that is the limiter. It's really the size of the niche and what the niche will be willing to spend. Now, if it's a huge niche, then you can have a low price point and it still all makes sense. If it's a small niche, but what people are willing to pay is a lot, then once again, then that's okay. So there are, for example, in internet marketing, there's a company called eMarketer. eMarketer releases reports that are generally anywhere from about, on the low side, $395 to the high side of several thousands of dollars. You can get a membership with them. I assume that membership is incredibly expensive, but nonetheless, they could support their membership with not that many members if the price is high enough. And, there are a lot of major, big, deep-pocketed corporations that are members, I would imagine, of that type of service because they are doing extensive research and reporting those results. So it really kind of depends on looking at the size of the niche and what the market will bear for great information. And then you can determine, is this going to eventually be a business, or is this going to be something that, is really a one-time person operating it that really doesn't have the possibility of growth. So if you take a look at that, then that will start giving you more of a certainty which way you can go. And then once you have that certainty, then you can either ask me more questions about that or you've already got your answer. And from there, then it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to actually getting it started and building out the content. All right, we'll take the first question from the queue.
Hey, Rich, it's Yarrow here. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Yarrow?
Good. I just wanted to ask a quick question. I thought it'd be a good chance to grab you regarding lists and with the people who are on your list and training them to become buyers, basically, because my list is getting larger now and more substantial, but it's still very low conversion rate. So I just was wondering what your thoughts were on improving the conversion and getting people to buy.
Sure. Okay, well, do you have an initial series that everybody gets no matter what?
Yes. There's a sequence of 50 emails that go out. They're promoting various things. Then, of course, I broadcast messages whenever a product launch happens, as you participate in them as well.
All right. So, that's really the opportunity to really incite buying and really conditioning people to buy is in the initial series. And in the publishing world, that series is called the Gauntlet series. And really there's 3 objectives to the Gauntlet series. One is to introduce who you are, what you're about, right? The next is to ramp them up into, your standard, if you do a lot of one-off type emails, they'll know where you're coming from and what you're all about. And then lastly is making that initial sale. And so along those lines, there are many things that you can do to kind of create that. One would be to look at like the way Perry Marshall does it. Perry Marshall's got a 5-day e-course. And on what he does is you opt in for that, and then after you've opted in, you'll get your 5 emails that will teach you about AdWords. But the way he's doing it, it's kind of interesting, and it's something that is worthy of taking a look at. I just spoke to him recently, and the conversion rates are real solid. What you can do is, and the way he does it is that he's sending out a really short email with the link back to his website. At his website, he's teaching them about that day's instruction. If you're using something like Infusion, you can actually take it even further. Perry does, but he hasn't done this yet, although it's in the works. What Perry does is he offers people to skip to day 2. Just click it and you go to day 2 at the end of the first one. And, with Infusion, you could actually track whether they do that or not. Now,
right.
On the left-hand side of Perry's, this email, right, is a call to action / headline type statement that is a link back to the sales letter of the actual product. On the right-hand side usually is some testimonials about the product. And then below the email is also a almost like order form copy where people can just choose which, whether they want the ebook or the gold version or the platinum version. And that has worked really well for Perry. It's something that we're looking at as well to kind of incorporate in a modified approach, but nonetheless a way of kind of getting the subscriber back to your site, being reacclimated to the fact that you do have something to sell, having those testimonials to the right, which kind of overcomes any kind of potential doubt or concern about who you are. And then, on some of the emails, he's not even really making an offer, but you see it there nonetheless. And so by doing that, you also get the benefit of having some extra search engine-friendly content that is already kind of with an order form at the bottom and some really good things in place. But I don't think I think it would be unfair to Perry if I gave out his stats, but I can say that it is an effective process, and that there's nothing wrong with being not overly aggressive, especially knowing who you are and your space, but pushing it a little bit harder that there is a benefit to being a buyer. And I don't know what that benefit might be, but maybe it's some exclusive content that are only buyers get, so that you build out if you've got 50 emails for people that are just general, maybe you create 10 or 15 or 20 where the content is more expanded. And you make it obvious that that content is only available for members, and anybody can be a member once they've made a purchase of any product. And so that is certainly a way to go, and it's not a bad way to go. Actually, a lot of people have had success with that. And then, the last thing is really, I got one more thing to say, but I got to kind of answer your question first, which is, what are you trying to sell them?
Right. Well, that's the thing. Obviously I have a membership site, and there's definitely a lack of product in my case. I don't have enough of my own things I'd like to sell. There's certainly affiliate products to sell as well, which I do sell, a few of them. There's an ebook called Desperate Buyers Only. It's a low-entry ebook. There's a few similar things like that, but, I want to be selling more of my own stuff and building up to some higher ticket items as well. That's what I could do, is train the smaller purchasers to become bigger purchasers. So the first thing to do in something in that kind of issue, and by the way, I think your blog looks really good these days, so kudos to you. You really have to have some entry points that are cheaper than a membership or continuity type of relationship. And so if I were you, what I would be doing is I'd be looking through all the stuff that is in the membership and seeing what you can kind of repurpose as some front-end products. And then, the big question mark that you're going to have to answer is, what is the ideal price point, to have for a front-end product? And, it's different for every business, but what I can tell you is that Agora has spent a lot of money testing this, and in their tests, what they've kind of determined is that $49 is the ideal price point. And so it's no coincidence that most of their products start out with a $49 price point. Right.
And the reason why it's the ideal price point is that a $49 buyer will spend about $100 a year with them on average, and a $99 buyer will spend about $100 a year with them on average. and a $25 buyer will spend about $50 a year on average. So they don't get any benefit in back end from having a higher price point. So their whole goal, because they're a very front-end oriented company, is to, have as high a client acquisition number as possible. But they also want to have clients that have the highest lifetime value. And so that's where they've kind of developed, that's where they kind of targeted that price point, and that's become the best price point for them. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to figure out what that is for you, and that'll take time. So in the beginning, it's about creating maybe, a $25 product, a $49 product, a $99 product, and, they could be as simple as, silver, gold, platinum kind of thing of some kind of product. And then, you can always, when you're doing that, incorporate either optional continuity where, they can pre-check or they can uncheck it, or force continuity where it's already checked and they can't uncheck it into the membership site. But by doing that, you're really kind of giving yourself a lot more flexibility in what you can offer and message to kind of market match, in the sense that, like, if something is all of a sudden very popular, you can create a front-end product for it, like, something that maybe you're going to create for your membership site anyway, and then spin it off as a front-end product that kind of stands out there, but it's the topic du jour, and therefore it will have a higher sales rate than maybe something that you're just, like, taking off the shelf.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost a case of too many options with this, because, like you said, you could have tick box for the, the continuity, when to include this on a front-end product, when not to, when to do a one-time offer. It gets a little bit overwhelming in terms of how to structure the funnel like that. But I can see it seems to be a case of just testing until you find the optimum, which is probably the greatest challenge, really, with the size of my operation. So.
Yeah, so, but the beginning is just basically creating some stuff, and, there's either two ways to kind of go about that. Whatever is easiest, right? Right. And then whatever is you believe is going to sell the most. And, you kind of have to, figure out, like, what you got time for. But there's definitely, I haven't gone through your membership site, but there's definitely, at least not for a long time, there's definitely component pieces that you could repurpose. And there's nothing wrong with that, because, especially if you're doing it in a way where it almost increases the value of the membership, because it's like, look, if I started buying all these component pieces, it would be ridiculous how much I'd have to spend. And now I'm a member and I'm getting all this stuff, for free. It makes people feel good about being a member. So you get that benefit, but at the end of the day, you get, so much more, because it'll be a lot easier to sell someone a single piece than, a membership, which is very hard to explain and, is constantly changing as far as, like, what you're offering. So the way Agora does it is that they'll create front-end products that they believe resonate with the marketplace the most. And, their whole business is so front-end oriented that, people's bonuses are based on that, et cetera. And then anything that sells well on a front-end basis, they will look at and figure out a way, if they can, to build a back-end product out of it, build it up, expand its scope, et cetera, because if it's resonating with the marketplace and performing well as a front end, then that means the market is into that area right now, or that topic, or that concept, or whatever. And so therefore it can go into, it would be a high-performing back end as well. And then lastly, their big back end, which is their, lifetime subscription, either way, whether they build a big back end from it or not, or they just keep it as a front end, either of those pieces is going to go into the lifetime subscription, so that they're expanding the benefit of that bigger offer that, at least right now, I don't know if they've changed it, but the lifetime subscriptions were $5,000. And then, if you wanted any component piece, you still had to pay the shipping and handling. So they weren't, like, people weren't requesting all of it. They still were requesting, like, whatever they felt they were interested in at the moment. But it's, Michael Masterson calls this concept optimal selling strategy. And for every business, like in order to really grow it, it's fascinating because he's been a mentor of mine, and when we sat down and kind of compared notes, all my businesses grew a lot faster than his did in the beginning. And, in the beginning is to get over $1 million. But where my businesses started to slow down at around $5 million or $7 million, his businesses started to really accelerate and, blow past $10 million, blow past $20 million, blow past $100 million. And the difference really was that they spent a lot of time in the beginning developing this optimum selling strategy, like what price points did these front-end products need to be, where could they advertise them, et cetera, so that they could really start deploying like many different types of front ends once they've kind of perfected the price point, the channels, et cetera. And so that at the end of the day is the driver of the business, creating new buyers. And, you're going to get some free, quote unquote free, right? Like, based on just who you are and people just signing up because of the traffic that you get. And that's not a bad channel to try and optimize. But ultimately, once you've kind of gotten some results based on that, then you'll have some idea of what you can then start spending. And then you can start like actually doing more media buys, pay-per-click, et cetera. But you're doing it in a way that's intelligent because you have already got some data of knowing what a buyer is worth, and also what kind of conversion rates you can hope for and expect.
Yeah, a lot of work ahead.
Well, you could also, from a standpoint of building out your content, and this is something that I'm going through right now, even for the membership site, like you need to start creating content where you're really breaking up the content from a standpoint of objectives, like what each piece is for, and so that after the fact, it becomes a lot easier to repurpose.
Right.
Right. So like the days of me doing like 2-hour calls for BGS are over and done with. Like now as I'm creating content, it's the content that I'm creating right now are 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and they're usually centered around one objective, right? So that later on, this could be repurposed in a really easy way.
Right. So it doesn't get dated and you can chop and change and put together. I see.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, for example, like in Module 1, I talk about entrepreneurial traits, right? So, and there's like the next 10 slides after I surface that are explain each entrepreneurial trait. Now, I've also gotten feedback from Module 1 that said, yeah, that's great, and thank you for that, but it would also be effective if you helped us develop those entrepreneurial traits if we don't have them, and maybe some kind of scoring profile so that we could actually figure out if we need them. And so that's what I've been working on recently. And so as I'm working on it, each trait is, the old way I would have done it is I would have created a lot of content for all those traits, and then I would have went one by one by one. Now I'm not doing it that way. What I'm doing is I'm actually creating separate presentations on each one, and there's a lot of benefit to that. One is from a repurposing standpoint, it becomes really easy. From another standpoint, though, you can start to streamline what you're doing. So, for example, like before I got on this call, I created a process map for what I call a unit, right, a subunit of like content. And so, I define the module goal, and I break that module into different categories. Now, I work with some instructional designers, so I take those categories and I send it off to one of the instructional designers. They review it. They try and improve it to make it more action-oriented. They send it back to me. I approve that, and then I start breaking the subunits of each of those categories. So, the module 1 might be develop become a better entrepreneur. That would be the module goal. The category goal would be to, in this particular case, develop, or maximize or optimize your entrepreneurial traits, right? And then the units would be become action-oriented, break free of the opinion of others, getting comfortable with ambiguity, achieving mental toughness, et cetera. And so each of those units, now that I'm figuring out what they need to be, right? From that point, the next step is then for me to develop a formalized kind of like structure for that content. So like on these, for example, what I developed was, and I'll just open one up to kind of take a look at it so I can kind of talk a little bit more intelligently about it, is there. Okay, so the first, this what I'm looking at right now is getting comfortable with ambiguity. And so the first slide is really about like, why is this not a, what do I mean by this? So I'm explaining what I mean by getting comfortable with ambiguity. Now, the next like block is, why is this a big problem? And if you don't have it. And so now I translate that into like, what is the outcome of not being comfortable with ambiguity? Then is this your problem? And a series of questions that people can kind of self-assess at this point whether or not this is an issue that they got to take further. Then the next area is how will your life change, right, by solving this, if it's a problem, because we're assuming that it is if you're moving forward through the content. And this is all about the benefits, selling people on actually making the change. And then the last thing is now how to, either break free of this problem if I'm defining it as a problem, or in this case, like getting comfortable with ambiguity is a goal. So it's more about how to actually do it. And then from that point forward, it's about, a bunch of different steps, different ways, tactics, et cetera, to do that. And then lastly, it's a wrap-up, which is just a summary, and then, a transition into helping people take action. And so by doing it that way, right, having a pre-established structure, that pre-established structure then it's easier for me to have, if I want to have someone research, they know exactly what areas they need to do research for me. And if I want to have somebody go out and get me images, then it's also really simple because they know like exactly where the path is going. And so the reason I've moved to this is that, and the reason I just drew out this process map is that now that I've got a formalized structure for these traits, it's really simple for me to have other people do it, where in the past it would have never been simple. And so, at the end of the day, the unit is what will be repurposed if it's repurposed. But having units and then having a standardized structure for them makes it a lot easier to get help so that I can generate more. And also it makes it really simple from a standpoint later on for repurposing and et cetera.
Well, when it comes to delivering that in terms of a product, do you still keep the individual units, like you can take them as a chunk, or you rope them together into one download or something like that?
Well, that, it's all depending on like exactly what you want to do. Like, for us, we might just take those units and then create really basically a sales letter that is all about, becoming, an entrepreneurial superstar or something like that. And, maybe it's a 3-module course, but module 1 is just the entrepreneurial traits. And since the content already resides in our system, it's really easy. It's just a question for us of like having, our technical people like pull that content out from a content management system, and then it's there. And so like that's the goal. The goal is to have, for us, is to have all this content in the system so that like our product line is basically a function of our creativity and our resources that are already in the library.
Right, okay, and you can then deliver it in an automated fashion and just have the front end selling the concept and then the system itself delivering the components that provide that service.
Right, but, we could just as easily then take the transcripts of those presentations and, create a report or, there's many different things that can be done once it's kind of cut up like that.
Yeah. That's innovative.
Well, and then, so this is like the driving force, and so that even later on, like when I now am, well, I haven't done any right now, but the plan is at least, is that if I'm going to go speak somewhere, right, like to create breaks in my presentation that are like in conjunction with what like I'm doing for the system, so that when I come back with a DVD of my presentation, it's really clear how to cut that up too and put each pieces in its respective parts.
Right. Neato. All right. Well, I got to run off to dinner, Rich, but thank you for taking the time to respond to that. And will I see you in Vegas next week?
I'm supposed to be going, yeah. So my plan is right now to go. I might even be going out to like Kern's house like early or something. So, but my plan right now is to be in Vegas and also maybe to come from San Diego. So, yeah, you will.
Okay, great stuff. Cool. I'll see you next week then.
Yep, cool. It was nice talking to you, Yarrow.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right. All right, so we'll take the next question from the queue.
Hey, Rich, Keith Carberry, how are you today?
Good.
Or this evening, I should say.
Yes.
Nice to have a different time. We appreciate that. Last time I spoke with you, I told you that we have a pretty good-sized group that we formed a company to set out a product launch for one of Mike Felsame's products.
Right.
And right now we have 22 solid members, and we're ready to get the product out the door, I'm saying within the next couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And my biggest question is, how do we get some good mid-level JVs and maybe some top-level JVs interested in not just the product, but the concept that we have created, which is somewhat unique? Is there a method that I need to do to send them information that you know of that's really quite attractive that you can share?
Okay, so the question really is about like how to get the super affiliates of internet marketing. Why?
Yeah, let me tell you something creative that we're doing.
Okay.
We have in our system, we determined that the right number of members at this time is really 30. And we had over 30, and we sifted out some that just weren't doing what we expected them to do. And we're going to sell our business, and we're going to sell our business with the remaining 7 slots that are available. And the way that we're thinking of selling it is the top-level producers over the first 30 days of our launch are going to become owners of our group. And they're going to share equally what we're going to share in the profits of the business from day one going forward, or actually from day 30 going forward. They're going to become a member, and they're going to become an owner of our group. And I think it's pretty unique. I don't know if anybody's ever done it before. I think it's pretty unique, and I'd like to try to get that message across to some of the mid-level or top affiliates that we're going to offer you a chance to own in our business if you're interested in it. And all you have to do is be a top affiliate.
Right. Okay, and it has been done, but it hasn't been done by many. So, and it definitely is a good approach. Well, what you have to do is you just have to put together your best presentation of it, and really, talk about the benefits, what they could expect to earn based on some testing that you've done, and then also what the long-term play is, and what minimal involvement you'll need from them, and then also handle the downside, like as far as like what's the risk, why is there no risk involved for them, and why it won't tarnish their name or their reputation, and if you take it from those angles, then it's about if you can bring one on board early who can champion it for you, you're going to be way better off.
Right.
But that's not necessarily easy. But nonetheless, what you can do is if you can get one who has some kind of affiliate base, then you can offer them a 2-tier that's exclusive to them to go out and really get their affiliates on board, so that then all of a sudden you develop some level of critical mass pretty quickly.
We do have a mid-level, and I'm sure he has connections with somebody in a top tier. When you're in the mid-level, you have both sides of the coin. So I'm sure he does have that connection, and I have not approached him yet as to whether maybe we should offer him, like you said, get him in early. He is mid-level, but he's obviously heading up the ladder. Would it be a good idea maybe to offer him, and maybe instead of saying we have 7 positions left, we have 6 positions left, because we're going to give him a chance to be an owner of this viral advertising program?
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then some incentive, you might do that, or you might offer, some override, because that person's going to find it an easier to get on the phone with bigger players than you would. So the idea is to incentivize both ways. If they get a big player, maybe they get an override, then the big player can get an override on their people. And, you're going to end up cutting it up, but, but at the end of the day, if you can get a few key people on board, you're going to be 10 times better off. And then, the goal would be for you, or, since I'm talking to you and you're in this program, it would be for you to have a handoff from that guy or girl who is this mid-level person, so that you can start developing relationships as well, so that the next thing that you do, you already have an in to some of those people.
Right, from his introduction Right.
And then you just got to make sure that it goes well, so that it becomes easy for you to get on the phone with those people.
Okay. My next follow-up question would be, how do I go about avoiding a substantial product launch? There's a product launch every day, basically, so it's difficult. But I want to make sure that I don't. Is there a method of finding out if there's a big product launch coming out on a particular day that I want to make sure that I avoid?
The only thing is just to be aware of what's going on, and to, this mid-level player that you have would have a better idea of it than the general public. And, generally, if a bigger person is going to have a launch, then they usually will start making some minimal waves, just letting people know that there's something coming. So, we've already done that. We've let people know on a personal basis that, we're doing something in September, early September, and then you'll see hints of it on the blog that something's coming in September. And so, people, and that's really for a couple reasons. One is for anticipation, but the other one is to kind of alert people, hey, if you're thinking about beginning of September, you might want to think again, because you're going to be kind of competing with us. And we're not the only people that do that. So it's become kind of standard form to do that, to just alert the world of when you're thinking about doing your thing.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'd hate to, and I know that since it is a viral product that we're marketing, and we're already viral from day one, I know that a product launch is not hugely important, but it's still somewhat important to get that word out, and the competition that we're offering for the first 30 days for the top producers who become owners of the business. I think that it does require a little bit of a ramp-up phase. Is that a 2-week thing, a 3-week phase, or you think it could be even shorter than that, or longer than that?
The launch process is really dictated by the amount of content that you plan on giving away.
Okay.
The longer the launch process, the more content you have to give away. And the concept there being is that the more content you have to give away, the more opportunities you're giving to JV partners to mail for you, because they're not just mailing for a sale, but they're telling people about different pieces of content that you're offering, and therefore you extend out how long the launch is going to be.
Right. Let me just give you an idea of one of the other things that we're giving away. We're giving away the first 250 people who sign up. We're going to, if they're newbies and if they want them, 100% website, 100% complete, soup to nuts, and we'll even host it for the first 250 people to sign up.
Yeah, that's more of a launch. That's once you've launched. that
right.
would be like a quick
you're saying something to give away
movie.
free. Okay, you're saying free giveaways. You're saying over a period of time.
Yep.
What are you referring to? Okay. All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your you're taking late phone calls today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay.
Speak to you soon,
Bye-bye.
Keith. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, Rich, Harry Williams. How you doing?
Very good. How are you doing, Harry?
Good, good. My question tonight is a general question about what's your take and what are your opinions on partnerships. You've talked about your clothing business in the past, your hypnosis business, and, of course, you have your business now. Have those all been partnerships, and what advice can you give on that, and just what's your general take on all that?
No, I mean, all of those businesses started out, at least, where I owned it. They might have evolved from there. Each one was different, but like even to this day today, I still own 100% of Strategic Profits, but that might not always be the case. And actually, it most likely won't, and that, Brian will eventually be a partner of mine, and ultimately maybe some other people too. The only challenge with partnerships is that one, at the end of the day, there's got to be somebody who's calling the shots, and that's okay, because even if you have 10 partners, there can always be a CEO that's a partner or not a partner. But that you have to prevent gridlock, and then when you're giving away a piece of equity, there's really got to be a strong reason as to why. And if it can be avoided at all, it should be, because you're giving up something that long term could probably be worth the most money of something that you own. It's like giving away a piece of your house. So you just have to be very cautious of doing that and really weigh the pros and cons about, is this the only way to get there, and then if it is the only way to accelerate the process or to provide the kind of quality of life that you want, then just trying to do it in a way that's intelligent from a standpoint of giving away what you need to give away and not give away any more. Now, if you're starting from scratch and you're doing a partnership, it's only more difficult if the parties haven't worked together in the past, because you don't really know what can be expected from either side. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure it does or doesn't.
Yeah, I think it someplace I saw, maybe when you were doing those videos with the Stomper Neck guys, somebody talked about a book that said, the biggest companies.
Oh, yeah, that's Blueprint to a Billion. And, in Blueprint to a Billion, they were talking about co-CEOs. A little bit different of a concept, but it's along the same lines of what you're talking about, but it's a little different in the sense that, in that sense, they were talking about public companies or companies that eventually went public. So they were just talking about two people running it, more of an internal person and an external person.
Okay.
Someone who's centered in like the operational side versus someone who's centered around like growing the business.
Right. So if you have a critical person in your company that you really don't want to think about leaving, do you cut them in on a piece of the action in the sense that no ownership, but say, okay, I'll give you a certain percentage of the revenue that comes in from this thing?
Yeah, I mean, a percentage of an override on the profits or something like that, sure.
Okay.
And, that's a smarter move if you're trying to retain someone and you don't want to lose them.
Okay. Have you done?
But, here's a book that is actually a really good book. I don't know that if it's out yet in the United States. I bought it about a year or two ago in either Australia or in England. But the gentleman who wrote it is Felix Dennis, and the book is How to Get Rich. And Felix Dennis is like the second wealthiest guy in England after Richard Branson. And so here's I just opened up the book here to like what he says about ownership. And it says why ownership isn't the important thing, it's the only thing. And then I'm just going to read you some things I highlighted here. It says, to become rich, you must be an owner, and you must try to own all of it. You must strive with every fiber of your being while recognizing the idiocy of your behavior to own and retain control of as near as 100% of any company as you can. And then the next highlighted part. To become rich, every single percentage point of anything you own is crucial. It is worth fighting for, tooth and claw. It is worth suing for. It is worth shouting and banging on the table for. It's worth begging for and groveling for. It's worth lying and cheating for. In extremes, it's even worth negotiating for. Never, never, never hand over a single share of anything you have acquired or created if you can help it. Nothing, not one share, to no one, no matter what the reason, unless you genuinely have to.
Well, that answers the question fairly clearly.
Yeah, but what you're saying is not an ownership thing. What you're talking about is something that more of a golden handcuff, and that's different, because at the end of the day, if you decide to sell the business, you have the ability to, because at the end of the day, like, that is where most entrepreneurs make most of their money, is on the sale of the business. And so what he's saying is that, you want to try and keep that as much as possible in your bank account, in your possession as possible.
Okay, and you follow that. I mean, you're all on board on that way of thinking then.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, for me, I might feel a little bit different. I mean, in the grand context, I agree 100%. And if I really wasn't trying to, like, groom other people to really take possession of major parts of my business where sooner rather than later, because if I did it later, the later that you do it, the easier it is not to give up ownership. The earlier you do it, not the harder it is, but it's harder than doing it later, let's put it that way. And so I agree with it. I'm not, I guess, to answer your question, like, most directly, because I'm not a money-motivated guy, sometimes, like, I might do something that I don't know that is in the best interest if I'm trying to create the largest amount of wealth for myself as possible. But a lot of times, some of my decisions are not based on wealth. They're based on what I think is fair, what I'd want someone to do for me, which is not necessarily a good way of looking at things in business, and also from a standpoint of what do I want for other people and what will I expect in return for it, and, can I get more from someone and therefore ultimately do less myself by giving away pieces. But it's something that, I don't take very lightly for sure. And I would tend to agree with what he says, especially if, there is a goal of getting as wealthy as possible in the shortest period of time.
Okay, so you just made me think of something else. If you're not, you say you're not a money-motivated guy, what drives you to want to build a $100 million company like Masterson? And I'm not asking that in a
no. And first off, I would say that I've never stated that goal, because I don't really care at the end of the day how big or small my company is. I'm much more driven by the impact and understanding that, especially for strategic profits, that I think that I think for entrepreneurs starting out, it is an incredibly difficult process, and I think that there are a lot of sharks in the world that would make it even more difficult. And if I can create something that ultimately not only makes it easier, but also makes it more likely to be successful, then I would be extremely proud. And at the end of the day, I'm driven much more by ego than I am by money. That ego then is associated with contribution, so, it's a good thing, but nonetheless, it's ego. It's not about creating something without it being attached to my name. That's where the ego comes in. It's about creating something that really makes a difference in people's lives, that people know where it came from. And so, it's the same, kind of reason why I took the first doctrine off the market, because I didn't feel like I was proud of it after the fact when I read it and I realized that I hadn't really solved any of the issues that I brought up. And so a lot of the company is about helping people, but and the psychological satisfaction I get from that. But in the beginning, it was about money. as all my other companies were.
Yeah. Okay.
But that also then changes the dynamic. Like, we had a whole day meeting today because with a person that we believe could potentially be a real force in this market and outside our market. And so part of our evolution for Strategic Profits is to start bringing and it works out well because of what I do, but even if it wasn't, we'd have to figure out a way to do it. It just so happens that it's easy for us because I'm more of a generalist, is to have, subject matter experts, specialists, and bring them up as gurus and then give them a piece of their channel. And so that ultimately Strategic Profits might have 10, 20, 30 gurus underneath it, and that because we already have a strong affiliate base, we have a big list, we can, make offers and deals with people to help them become a guru faster, make more money, and ultimately have a brand within our business. But nonetheless, they're not owning equity in Strategic Profits.
Right. Yeah, you're just incentivizing it. I mean, because you've talked on previous calls about, getting the guy that built the widget at Microsoft, enticing him over instead of him going someplace else. I mean, are you offering to do that? Are you, in order to entice the superstars, are you offering a certain...
No, for that kind of stuff, it's more bonus-driven, and it's related to performance.
Okay, so it is an incentive-type plan where they have a base plus if they perform. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that answers my question. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Okay, we'll take the next question from the queue.
Hi, Rich. I was on the call last week, and we were talking about it was a business that I'm involved in, and it was one that you'd previously been involved in. We were talking about pay per lead marketing with local businesses, and I have developed that business previously, whereby people pay per traffic for kind of like there's a bank of traffic that we can point in different directions and put on people's websites and then pre-qualify leads, and people pay for the quality of that lead, so the different scales of how we benchmark what's a better quality lead compared to a lesser quality lead. And we pretty much covered that in the last call. It was very, very good advice. And beyond that, what I'm looking to do is the local area where I live, there isn't a well-established business network. There's a Chamber of Commerce, but it doesn't seem to have much of a large active membership. And what I'm looking to do is, previously one of the callers on this call, they were talking about membership sites, and I'm looking at building a business network that is going to be primarily a membership-based website. And some of the reasons for doing that is to build a list of businesses that I can then send out information to, and other subscribers could send out information to. But beyond that, to provide an online forum where people can put video presentations of the sales pitches that people could be interested in, and to provide a forum, messaging and chat style forum for local businesses in this local area. So what I'm looking at doing is a membership site, not on a kind of global scale, which is what I guess you're more familiar with dealing with, but on a local scale. And I was wondering if you've got any advice about how to effectively make it more of a product launch style approach to getting that started.
Well, okay, and what would be the benefit to the companies that got involved would be a source of leads? It
would be a website that would be promoted locally, and it would be high profile in the search engines because that's one of my key strengths is key search engine positions. For example, estate agents, let's say in Birmingham, something like that as a key phrase. And if we're talking about what is it that people get, well, the website will be bringing traffic through to the page on the business network's website, which will give them exposure to people doing local searches. And in terms of
so they're going to get
with
leads.
other business people, possibly articles on the website that will help some of the startup companies, but also it will provide a forum for some of the more established companies to network with some of the less established startup businesses where they might find that they could find graphic designers, website designers, or new staff.
Okay, so at the end of the day, though, they're like the primary benefit is that they're going to get leads, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so the question is doing a product launch that's kind of focused on these people.
That's right, yeah, but it's purely local kind of product launch.
Yeah, I mean, there have been people that have done that. At the end of the day, it's going to be it's really going to be about identifying which psychological principles you plan on using. Anticipation, scarcity, et cetera, and there's anticipation is a no-brainer when it comes to this. You can kind of talk about like what the impact could be on their businesses. Scarcity could be a question of that you're only going to allow like one person in each category, or 3 people in each category, and then once those people are slotted, then nobody else can really have premium positioning at the very least. And so there are elements that you can do, but then the question is like, and this is the big question that's really going to be the big driver is, can you get these people on a list?
Yeah.
And if you can, then you're all set. And if you can't, then it's going to be very difficult to have any kind of successful kind of launch.
Sure. I mean, in terms of the email list, that's not going to be a difficult thing to achieve with local businesses. In terms of generating interest by networking, I'm already quite well established in the local business community, so I've got a lot of good contacts.
Cool.
But what there isn't is really an overall forum, online forum, or even there aren't that many well-established business networks in this area. There's not one that seems to have really captured the imagination of people and inspired them to get together and to network and mastermind off each other. I was involved in one previously, but unfortunately 2 of the leading people that were involved in it were kind of a bit dodgy and just used it to drain off the resources of other people. So it wasn't really a very beneficial event for some of the people that were involved in it for the long term.
All right. Well, so I mean, but back to what I said, if you can create a list, then you can do all the component pieces. You can do the launch. You can do, use a blog as a tool. It's rather straightforward once, if you can get everybody on a list, and that's really the biggest thing that you're going to have to do, because you're not going to have necessarily JV partners that have, a lot of these people on their list, unless there are services that provide a lot of the services for a lot of the businesses in the local area. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Is there any other questions that you had about it?
I suppose just, in terms of building the email list and making phone calls, that sort of thing, that's fine. I've got a business associate who runs one of the better, well, it's probably the best bar in this area, and we're talking about a city with about 250,000 people. It's possible to get that venue for some kind of launch event. But would you say that if it's going to be if it's a launch that's based on what you're suggesting, which is the email list,
the launch is based on the email list only because, unless you're going to you have to create some ongoing way to create anticipation, desire, etc. Now, if you're Apple, you can just make you can be Steve Jobs and just make a statement that we're coming out with a new iPhone, and that's going to be enough because there's going to be enough people talking about it to do what is necessary, which is to create buzz, desire for the next phone, etc. Without that, you need to have some way of consistently contacting people to get them swept up into the process. And so, you can do it lots of different ways, but at the end of the day, you need to have some way of doing that. And the cheapest way is to get people on an email list that you then have the ability to, push messages out that drive that process forward.
Okay. And the other question I had was with the StomperNet members that signed up, whether there was a course for building strategic partnerships.
Yeah, there is. And
interested in.
Yeah, we haven't rolled it out yet, but there will be. And the way it works is that the first call is available to everyone who signed up. Well, I think it's everyone, period. And then I think there's a 4-call thing. So the last 3 are targeted towards the people that bought from Stomper, but we'll make some kind of special arrangement for people that are already in BGS, and I should make a note of that, so that, you can't go backwards, obviously, in time. So there will be, and I know tomorrow I have a meeting about when we're actually doing that. So I'll have more information on the next call if we don't send out an email about it prior.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks very much, Rich. Thanks for your time. That's more food for thought, and I'll make way for the next call. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So we'll take the next question.
Mr. Sheffrin.
Yes.
It's Howard. How you doing?
How you doing, Howard?
Okay. You want a little quick update here?
Sure.
Okay. So I put up a Warrior special offer a couple of weeks ago, and it did not really do too well compared to what I see other people doing on the Warrior special offer. I noticed there was some guy that was giving away a free ebook. The headline for his offer was $120,000 from outsourcing, and what I had been doing was I've been really all the Warrior Forum threads on outsourcing were great. Were great research tools there, and basically everybody's just really frustrated with finding competent workers and reliable workers. And so I used as a headline, frustrated, overworked internet marketers was one that I used, and then I switched it to outsource directory, competent, reliable help. But I only had about 200 views of the offer, and this guy, just saying $120K for outsourcing, had 1,000 views for his offer. He ran it through twice, but the point was that it's got to, and you said this already too, it's got to have money, make money attached to it. It can't be save time, save money. It's got to be make money. Mm-hmm. When the dust is settled on Jeff Mills' big ticket outsourcing product, apparently there was a lot of refunds on that, and he did a coaching program. I did one of his, as a guest expert, one of his coaching sessions for his monthly coaching program. And then there was another guy that did an outsourced mastermind member site, much too similar to what I had been designing. But his thing is not, there's some issues with the model he's using. So his thing is not going anywhere either. I mean, but then the pay-per-click traffic is there's really no searches done on it. So I'm finding that this market is really challenging in that it's a hard market to reach, and it's not a hungry market by any stretch of the imagination. So so it just really I have there's 4 other niches that I have a lot of expertise in and a lot of traction in already that I'm going to sort of. I can't build a business on outsourcing for internet marketing. It's just not. It's just too difficult. There's a lot of easier things to do.
Okay.
However, I do have a lot of experts. I already got a lot of product in that, and I do like the internet marketing niche. And so my idea at this point is, given the launches between Mike's launch and then another guy, Mike Rasmussen, did a launch in the last couple of days, a butterfly marketing style launch, free front end, upsell, downsell, list builder kind of offer. So, I've got my video outsourcing product that I've been using as the upsell to my directory product. So now I'm thinking of flipping it, giving away the video product for free, and then upselling with I have a lot of other materials on, like building a virtual team type of stuff, like webinars. Stephen Pierce donated a sort of like their back-end virtual team management ebook. I've got, and plus the directory product and all those, those bonuses. So I have a really strong upsell, I feel, for that. And so I might just do one of those style offers to, build a list, because the list I've been building has been pretty responsive. I've got about a $3.50 visitor value on my list so far, and it's like under 1,000 people. So if I continue building lists and getting the relationship going, keeping it up with little mass control sprinkled in there, the outsourcer character has been really a good thing. So that's my strategic plan here for the outsourcing niche. What do you think about the butterfly marketing style approach for the product?
Oh, I think it's it's very effective. I mean, if you could peer inside Mike's business, you'd see that he's got stuff that he set up 2 years ago that he's never done any promotion for, that every day makes sales and every day brings in leads. So I think there's you can't argue with that kind of success, and I think that it's a great approach.
Right. Well, but he's also got some systematic traffic generators going on that. Not
all of them, and when he first started, he didn't, and it still worked well. So I think it's a good way of going, and I'm in the very beginnings of writing another report, and I think it'll be educational for you if I end up going down the road that I think I'm going to go down. It's not about outsourcing at all, but what you'll see is that I will take certain concepts that nobody's out there looking for right now, and I will turn it into something very desirable that people are going to start looking for. And that's kind of what I was talking about, like when we spoke previously.
Yeah.
And that's how you might not be at a point yet where you find that kind of process easy, and I don't know that it's ever easy actually, but that's how you hit home runs.
Yeah. Well, I'm not abandoning the niche. It's just that I find that the limitations I'm having with.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. I mean, I understand it. Yeah. So, now you move on. You keep what you have in place. You try and get it to work for you, and then as you're working on the next thing, ideas will still occur to you all of a sudden, because that's just the nature of the way the brain works. About your previous one, and then when at that point you just start compiling those ideas, and then later on, when you finish this newer thing, whatever you're going to work on, then you can go back and try some of those ideas so that you don't end up bouncing back and forth. But at the end of the day, that's where the big home runs come from.
Right.
It's kind of actually a little total random aside, but not to spend a lot of time on it, but I've never spoken to Jeff Mills, but when I looked at his product, not his product because I don't own his product, but when I even just looked at his sales material, he took some of my slides, which in his sales letter he had one, but then in his presentations, he pulled slides out of my presentations and just I guess took pictures of them and put them into his presentations, which he's going to get a call from my attorney at some point, or at least from my office, telling them that we don't appreciate that. So, yeah, I mean, and that if that's any hint into how well prepared and what he presented and what he created, then it's not any shock that he would have refund problems or anything else, because at the end of the day, if he's taking shortcuts on content like he did on what I see just from the outside, that's a problem. And I don't want to make this about me and him, but what I do want to say is that at the end of the day, you got to have some stuff that makes people want, they're glad that they ended up buying your stuff. And when you see laziness on the front side, I can only imagine that that laziness kind of carries forward, and that's going to be a problem for anybody in any market, unless you're charging just a really low dollar figure, and at that point it's well, why bother?
Well, it's like you mentioned in your I think it was the attention deficit thing. Is you can run, but you can't hide. The word is out there, and that could really make or break your products and your reputation. Just looking on Warriors Forum, there's one particular marketer who's really getting trashed on there, and my experience was the same thing. So he's not really stepping up to rectify it at all. So the Warrior Forum is such a focal point for the internet marketing niche that. In fact, Alan Says contacted me. He wants me to do a part on outsourcing. He's finally getting a product together for the forum to sell to people. So he put out some feelers, and I'm going to be contributing an outsourcing section. And so things are going well in that niche. It's just tough.
It's tough nut to crack,
really
and sometimes they are. Yeah. So. I gotta put my time and energies where it's gonna leverage them where it's gonna make the most. And that makes sense. So how can I help you tonight?
I just wanted to update you and run that by you, and that was basically it.
All right. So yeah, I mean, to answer the question more directly, I do think that
and the butterfly
the butterfly sites are a great way to go, because at the end of the day, there's very few things out there that you can create once and profit from for an extended period of time. And based on what I've seen from Mike's, which is more than what I would imagine most people have seen, having seen his PayPal account many a times and kind of seen what was actually going on, it's rather impressive to me. I mean, it's incredibly impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a bad thing.
Okay. I will be working on that.
All right, so keep us in the loop, and then we'll revisit this after I release my next report.
Okay. Are you doing another event this summer, or are you?
I think we're going down to one a year, just because I'd rather it be as as well. I'd rather the speakers be as try and have the same level that we had in the last event, and to do that every 6 months is just, in the growth of our company right now, is just too time intensive, because it takes us a month at the very least of everybody's time, and it's just when we have front ends to build and other things, it becomes too hard to kind of produce something like that.
Right. All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to it.
Cool. All right, speak to you soon, Howard.
Okay.
Hey, Rich, Mark Fitzpatrick. How you doing?
Very good.
It's amazing what a little nasty storm putting the power out will do for a backup power business.
Yeah. My wife called me right before this call and said, we lost our power.
You did too, yeah. We've in D.C. this past 2 weeks, it's been just really, really weird. We even had a little crackle tonight. I don't know why. It was kind of a clear day, but anyway, so that's kind of had me swamped. Interesting things come out sometimes with some of the clients I meet. And a friend had brought me over to a kind of a prolific inventor's house, and I don't know whether you can answer a question on this. It's something that's intrigued me. He's developed a product, and I've seen it. It came out of a lab that's out of a university here, but he owns it, and it's essentially, in a nutshell, 10 times stronger than concrete, yet half the weight, and half of it's made from waste product from coal plants. So it has a lot of implications, and he's looking to. He's had a previous product. Most of them were under government, military, but one other one was taken and turned into a public company. But he's a bit older now. Anyway, he's looking to raise about $40 million initially to get a first foundry up to start making the material. My question is, and if you don't know this area, I know there's some nuances in terms of SEC regulations. But one, would you negotiate? Because he's saying, gosh, you come across a lot of people. If you're interested, I wouldn't mind. You can take a shot at trying to help raise this money, and you get a cut. One, what would be a reasonable percentage of that money and or stock? And two, is it reasonable to say for a time period to say that I could have an exclusive chance with my partner friend to try to help him get the money? Because I said I don't want to put any time and scramble around and have somebody else come up and say, oh, we just got the money. So I don't, that's kind of, it's just something that kind of plopped in front of me, and I'm taking a look at it. I'm going to make a few calls and set up a few meetings. But do you have any insight into that at all about how to approach that?
Yeah, you do definitely. The compliance side is significant, and it really kind of, it's outside the scope of my expertise. I've been involved in it from a standpoint of at least being approached, and I have been involved in it from a standpoint of understanding like what's involved when you're franchising and going out to like franchise promoters and having them like get people to like divvy up the money and bring the money in and stuff. But it all depends. As far as getting an exclusive, ultimately you don't want an entire exclusive, because I would imagine that, if you're going to bring people in, you really want the thing to fly. And so it might be more like exclusive based on the type of people or the demographic or, the channels that you're going to use, and some reassurance there. But it's that's a tough nut to crack. And then it's also, as far as the override, as far as a percentage, I've seen numbers all over the place. So
yeah,
I'm just not the best person to really answer that, because I would really be pulling something out of nowhere and basing it on experience or anything else.
Yeah, I've seen from initial talks, I've seen it kind of all over the place too, and it depends. And they say sometimes the people, if you got a group or a handful that kick in the $40 million, that they frown upon seeing
too high a percentage coming out. So
going out to somebody brokering it. So I've seen 2 to 3% seems to be the one that seems reasonable, and then maybe some stock, but I guess it depends on who's involved. So
and
anyway,
how big a concept it is to kind of like promote and stuff like that.
Yeah, he had the last product he did, which is unusual because this never happened before. The Carlyle Group, they put in, which is nothing for them, and they won't get involved for something that was $20 million, and that's too low for them. So they might come in on the second tier, but he needs that first 40 to get up and running. So anyway, I'm kind of poking around, asking different people, and I've got my college coach found the Jiffy Lube, so he's going to kind of fill me in a couple of days too when we meet. But I'm just checking to see what your insight might be. But I appreciate at least the input.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Rich.
I can't be of more help.
No. The best help sometimes is being honest as to telling somebody something that's not accurate. So I appreciate that.
No problem, Mark.
Thanks, Rich. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Rich. Teddy Garcia.
Hey, Teddy.
How you doing? Hey, quick question for you. I'm in the process of getting everything set up in Infusion, and was wondering if you had any best practices in there, or what it is, what features you leverage the most that you might be able to provide some insight into.
All right, sure. Well, since you talk to Brian from time to time, he's really the best person to ask. We probably do have more best practices about how to use Infusion than any other user of Infusion, and even even Infusion has said so, and we have special arrangements with them. getting stuff like pre-release and things of that nature. Unfortunately, I probably know the least about infusion of anybody in our office. So what I can tell you is that, what some of the features that I know we use and use on a very extensive basis are, one, creating very definitive segments, so that, like, when we do mailings, we can really target who we want to mail to, and if we want to customize mailings, which we have done on occasion, we can promote someone's product, and yet the message that's going out to our list is being customized based on where, if that person's bought anything from us, if they have, what they've bought, and things of that nature. And that's one of the reasons why we outperform everybody else, is because we use stuff like that. And then, just having a bunch of automated processes of things that happen behind the scenes, those are the two that are most obvious to me, as far as, really clear, definitive segments, and also really well-defined, automated routines. And those are the two things that, for a lot of other systems out there, you can't really fully leverage, where you can in, a infusion. Because, it's one thing to set up a separate list for everything. It's another thing to have, everybody in one list, but then to be able to isolate different people based on different actions, and having those predefined in the system, so that when you want to mail that group, it becomes very easy.
So I shouldn't be afraid then to basically group them every time they take. So if you send out an email blast and there's a link in it, and you make that a trackable link, when they click that link, that's an indication of raising their hand about a certain topic.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think, like, we go from adding segments to then pulling them back and stuff like that, but we certainly, we know which people, for example, bought this product that we were an affiliate of, or that product, which people are more likely to go to the blog, and that helps later on, like, as you have more and more commitments to do different things, to be able to really isolate the people that you want to isolate. Like, and a great example of that is that we have I'd be guessing, about 3,000 people on our general list that came from Brian Tracy. And, they're not from the internet marketing space. And so what we've done to help monetize those people is send them a different offer than we might send the general list that's more internet marketing related. And so whenever we have someone that, like, or something that we're promoting that we want to test out, or we want to kind of see how it would respond to a generalized, more self-development type list, like, we're able to then first do it to that sub-list really easily, so that it becomes something of, like, either a test, or it becomes a way that we help monetize a portion of our list that is dissimilar to other people on our list.
Gotcha.
But Brian's really one of the best guys to speak to about that, because he really knows the ins and outs of that system backwards and forwards.
Good deal. Yeah, there's definitely a lot in there to learn. So.
Yeah, and they're coming out with a new release pretty soon that's going to be pretty amazing and more intuitive and easier to use and things of that. So that's why I've been anxious to start actually learning some more about how to use it, but I've kind of decided I might as well hold off.
Yeah, I just went to a user session for it. They're traveling around the country kind of doing local user sessions, and they did one in Charlotte last week, and that was really good. I got to spend a lot of time with Tyler, director of marketing, and he went over a lot of the backhanded tips and tricks and best practices, so that was definitely helpful. But, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that new release, too, just for some of my staff to get in there. They get so lost in there right now. It's just so complex,
Yeah.
So, cool. Appreciate it.
No problem. Okie doke. So let's return to the. Hold on a second here. Let's return to the questions from the forum, and I apologize if you still have a question. There might be some time at the end, so because I see I got two more questions here from the forum. I want to answer these first, and then, time allowing, if you have a question, by all means press star 1, and we'll get your question answered as well. Right now, I don't see any in the queue, so cool. All right, so let's see. This question is from, it's one question. It's from Lisa. Okay, so I'll just start where she started, even though some of it might not be clear, but it's not clear for me either, so I think we're all on the same page here. All right, so I'd like to second Todd's question, who posted a similar question for the June 11th call. I, too, joined together with StomperNet. Not sure if I can handle both StomperNet and Strategic Profit simultaneously, although both seem crucial to success. What I've gleaned so far is that your system is already in place and running. We jump in whenever we're ready. All the profit modules are already uploaded. How much time should we spend per module? Well, I mean, that really depends, Lisa. It depends on, how much of that you've already got in place that I've talked about versus how much you need to really think about, put in place, and develop. I've heard from some people that what they love most is that they only have to spend 2 hours a month, and then I've heard the antithesis of that from other people. So it's really more based on where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. What I can tell you, though, is that in future editions, the content will be a lot more per module, but it will be compartmentalized, kind of what I was explaining to Yarrow earlier about cutting up the content. So it'll be more of a buffet type thing, but it won't be a buffet like a Stomper, because it will still have very defined paths and also assessments to help you kind of figure out which ones are best and user ratings to see what other people like the most. Okay, so the next thing is next question here. There were suggestions on what to do first. What I've written down is download all of the free documents, read through the material twice, watch the video, record questions. Yeah, I would say that that's a good idea. And by the free content, it's all the reports I've written, all the videos I've created. For those of you who haven't watched it, I'm not sure if it's available in the system. I would assume it is, and if you can't find it, you can always ask me a question, and then I can follow up on it. But, I did these series of videos that really, I was reviewing them the other day. I'm pretty proud of them. And I think they answer a lot of questions about initial growth, and that is the Startup to Freedom series. And there was an initial video of about a half an hour. Then there was a follow-up video to that, which was about an hour and 40 minutes, which talked about how to get initial momentum in your business. And actually, I think it's on the bottom of Module 1 as well. And then a follow-up to that about dealing with the problems that people are experiencing and how to overcome them. So I still believe that that's a very good way to kind of get acclimated. Next, download the thinking, planning, and learning software from the resources PDF. Use each one once. Create process maps for how to use them. Yeah, as I said also earlier with Yarrow, I just created a process map right before I got on this call because I was defining a process that I needed to start really thinking about how I could speed up the process and take less of my time and start using other people's time, energy, effort, etc., so that we can do more in less time. And so a lot of the tools there are the tools that I use to do that, and I think it's useful for everyone to kind of see those, experience those. And then, you don't have to use what I'm recommending. In my resource document, none of them are affiliate links, and I did that purposely so just people could know that the reason that they're there is genuine and not because I have some hope of profiting off of that recommendation. And along those lines, what I would say is that you don't feel any need that you need to use the same tool that I use, and that there's, for mind mapping, I'm still a big MindJet fan, and I probably will be for a long time, even though I've experienced and played around with a lot of the other tools out there. That doesn't mean that you need to use that. There are free tools out there that do mind mapping. There are lower price tools that do mind mapping and process mapping, et cetera. So you can kind of see how I do it. You can kind of download the tool as a free trial that I use and then kind of explore and see if there's a better tool or a cheaper tool or what have you. I can tell you that the tools that I use, I've experimented with a lot of different stuff, and I revert back to those because I find that they are superior, but they're superior based on how I use them. And I think that, to each his own, and what I find superior, you might find you have no interest in, and therefore it can suffice what your needs are for free or for a lot less money. And then the last point, she says, listen to watch profit modules in order along with your worksheets, take notes, summarize, watch them again, reconsolidate, create similar PowerPoints as they relate to one's personal business since they were originally designed to be released every 30 days. Should we wait that long between modules, once per week, once per month? Can you confirm that this is the best use of our time? Should we do the profit modules first, given that both Todd and I are probably many more jumped into both at the same time? This is a great chance we can get easily distracted, and that would be a big shame. Thanks in advance for helping us stay focused. No problem, Lisa. Okay, so last question. In the grand scheme of things, I think, and, obviously I'm going to be somewhat biased, but I think that the tactics kind of, in the grand scheme of things, they come later in the equation. And I think that a lot of the confusion that's out there about which tactics to use, about the overall development of your business, come from a fact of not really having mastery of the fundamentals. And the more mastery you have of the fundamentals of business, the fundamentals of internet marketing, et cetera, the easier it will be as you learn tactics, as you discover new strategies, to kind of plug them in. And the best example I have of this, or personal example rather, best personal example I have of this is that, I've worked with Jay Abraham a lot. I've partnered with him. We share a lot of late night phone calls, going over strategies, and it was my basis of my marketing education came from Jay. And then because of that, when I went on to other gurus like a Dan Kennedy or something like that, who was much more tactical, I found it very easy to take those tactics, use them, figure out where to use them in my business, and exploit them for all they're worth, whereas others kind of struggled. And the reason why is that I had those fundamentals down. I think the same thing applies to business. I think that the more well-versed you are about your business and understanding what the drivers of business are and et cetera, the easier you will find every other component related to business. It certainly has been that way for me, and it's been that way for a lot of the clients that I've worked with, especially when I worked with individually, to see that on a very personal basis. So I would strongly recommend that you kind of follow that process, understanding that the tactics are they're crucial. I mean, I'm not trying to dismiss the fact that at the end of the day, they're going to be what drives your business. But the way you set up the business, the way you're organized, and your overall focus and philosophy, if that's not in place, then you run the risk of starting lots of different tactics and not really having an overall sense of strategy of how you go about building the business that you want to build. So, like I said, I'm going to be somewhat biased, obviously, based on where my focus of my life is and where I work, and so take that with a grain of salt, but that's my strong recommendation, that that the tactics are important, but that if you don't have this fundamental understanding, then you run the risk of never really tapping into highest and best use of your time, your effort, your energy, and you also run the risk of consistently running uphill. And a metaphor or an example of that would be that we had a problem with our website, and the problem was that we were being penalized by Google, and we didn't even know why. And so that was a problem, and I didn't really want to go out and do a ton of SEO type stuff until we kind of resolved that problem, because until we resolved that problem, it was like we were going to be consistently swimming uphill, running uphill, because we were always going to get diminished results because of that. So before we started anything else, I reached out to an expert on SEO, and he kind of deconstructed the site, saw all the problems that were creating these problems, and reported back to us, and we took care of them. And then because of that, now we're much more prone and focused on doing more SEO and really optimizing our site. But first, we had to take care of those problems, and that's kind of what I see as being the basis of what we provide. That when you understand it, everything else in business becomes easier because you have these fundamentals down. And if you don't, everything becomes more difficult because you don't have these fundamentals. So take that as my perspective on things and understand that, it's not just based on what I'm teaching, but it's also based on my experience online and my experience in working with so many people and helping their businesses grow. These are the the pivot point pieces of information that when you get it, you really can drive your business and grow your business a lot faster. And so with that said, let's see. If there is a question, go ahead and press star 1. I do not see any questions right now in the queue, which means that we can wrap up if there are no other questions. So going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay. So this will end this call, but let me just review a few last-minute component pieces that I think are valuable. I think that we've talked about. One is that if you're going to do any kind of launch these days, I think based on what I was explaining earlier, I believe to Keith, if that was correct, was that you're better off these days of bringing in a partner that has the connections already in place, that you will save so much time. Because the hardest thing is to get access to the people who can really drive it a lot faster than everyone else. And so that would be a takeaway for anyone that's thinking about a launch, to really strongly consider who they might be able to approach that could go out and really kind of champion the cause for them. The next thing was talking with Yarrow about basically, how do you monetize a list better? And part of the reason why he needs to what part of the things that he needs to do is the same stuff that we're working on internally right now, is creating more front-end products of lower price point, and then determining what that right price point is for your business so that you can ultimately develop that optimum selling strategy that's so crucial if you really want to grow a business fast. And then lastly, figuring in and focusing on a lot of the resources that we provide that I think people take for granted that they never really go back and take a look at. I can tell you that if you haven't read the Manifesto series or you read it a long time ago, it certainly is not a bad idea to revisit it at some point in your progression through our program, especially the final chapter, which really kind of dives deep into some of the different types of advanced strategies and kind of what I was talking about earlier to Yarrow. The final chapter goes into a lot of depth on. And the videos that I talked about, the resource report, et cetera, there's a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people don't really tap into. And, we can't consistently make a big deal about it, but they're there and they're waiting for you to kind of explore and think about and use. And so that will wrap this call up. I do have some more things I want to share, and I will do that on the next call. And one of the areas that I want to spend some time talking about, some more entrepreneurial traits. And then I want to talk about undermanagement versus micromanagement versus the right way to manage. And I think that more and more, this is a skill that whether you're going to outsource, whether you're going to hire people, it's going to be the driver of your business in the sense of, how effective are you at getting other people to do work for you that you're paying for? And the fact that you're paying is not enough. You really have to manage the process. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that because I've certainly, my horizons about it have expanded. And I was working with a client not too long ago, and this really turned out to be one of the big culprits of the problem that we needed to address, and that was undermanagement. It's been an area that I've personally struggled with in the past, and so I'd love to share some of those observations with you, and I'll make a point to do that in the next call. So with that said, I want to wish everyone a great night. I'm glad that I ended up doing this call from my office because I was planning on doing it from home since it was late, but we lost power. So had I done it at home, we would have had a little bit of a problem. So with that said, good night, everyone, and I'll speak to you next week.